I'm a big ham, really. I just get on that stage and do it. I don't really take myself that seriously. Not anymore. There was a time where in the early days where our music was very pompous and very serious, and people thought, oh God, what a load of bores, you know?
Freddie Mercury's eclectic taste was built on a bedrock of pure, undeniable soul, and for him, one voice embodied that soul more completely than any other. From his earliest days of listening to music, he was captivated by the power and passion of American soul artists, but he held a special reverence for the woman crowned its queen, Aretha Franklin. He didn't just admire her, he studied her. He was fascinated by the sheer effortlessness of her delivery, how a voice so technically astonishing could also sound so completely natural, so utterly instinctive. He would often speak of her in interviews with a sense of genuine awe, the fan in him coming to the fore. He once remarked, "I love Aretha Franklin. She's just a natural. She sings from the heart, but she's also a wonderful musician. She has this incredible feel for a song."
Aretha Franklin's phrasing is just wonderful. I wish I could sing like her. You know, her phrasing is just so beautiful and it's so effortless, and she just sings like a dream.
For Freddie, Franklin represented a kind of vocal truth. He saw her as a channel for pure emotion, something that couldn't be faked or manufactured. This became a foundational principle in his own approach to singing. While his voice was a very different instrument, he sought to emulate the emotional honesty he heard in hers. He didn't try to copy her sound, that would have been impossible and pointless. Instead, he tried to capture her spirit. He wanted his own voice to be a vehicle for passion, to convey the feeling behind the lyrics with the same raw intensity. This influence is perhaps most audible in the gospel-infused anthem from the A Day at the Races album, Somebody to Love.
I just can't get no relief from somebody, anybody.
The song was a deliberate homage to Franklin's style. Freddie famously constructed a vast vocal choir in the studio, layering his own voice, along with those of Brian May and Roger Taylor, to create the sound of a 100-strong gospel ensemble. It was a staggering technical achievement, but its heart was pure Aretha.
And this is me sort of going on about Aretha Franklin, and sort of made him go a bit mad. I just wanted to write something in that kind of thing.
The call and response structure, the soaring ad-libs, the sheer devotional energy of the performance, it was all born from his love of her music. He was reaching for that same feeling of ecstatic release he found in her records. He never had the opportunity to meet Aretha, and it is perhaps for the best. For him, she was an untouchable ideal, a pure voice on a record, the ultimate benchmark for soulful expression. This profound appreciation for raw emotional power was a core component of his musical DNA, but he also craved a different, more visual kind of performance, one that combined exceptional vocal talent with immense physical drama and a flair for the theatrical. This search for a performer who embodied theatricality led him directly to the world of Broadway and Hollywood, and specifically to the dazzling high-energy star of the film Cabaret, Liza Minnelli.
Just like I cried for you, and I was.
In 1972, the film adaptation of the musical became a cultural phenomenon, and Freddie was utterly captivated. He saw in Minnelli's Oscar-winning performance as Sally Bowles a perfect fusion of vulnerability, power, and pure, unadulterated showbiz. It was a revelation. He was mesmerized by her energy, her precision, and the way she used her entire body as an instrument to tell a story.
Something's bound to begin. It's gotta happen so.
He once declared, "I love Liza Minnelli." The woman's a genius. Her sheer energy and vitality on stage is amazing. She's a great star. He studied her performance in Cabaret with an almost forensic intensity. He saw how she could command a stage, not just with her voice, but with a flick of the wrist, a turn of the head, a piercing look in her eyes. It was a masterclass in stagecraft, and he absorbed every lesson. He didn't want to sing like Liza, but he wanted to perform with the same total commitment and dramatic flair. Her influence can be seen throughout his stage work, from his stylized, angular poses to his direct, almost confrontational engagement with the audience. He learned from her that a performance wasn't just about hitting the notes, it was about creating a moment, a spectacle, a piece of theatre. Unlike with Aretha Franklin, Freddie's admiration for Liza Minnelli was not from a distance. He got the chance to meet his idol. In 1974, Queen were playing a run of shows at the Uris Theatre in New York. Liza, then the toast of Broadway, came backstage to meet them. Freddie was reportedly almost speechless with excitement. For this larger-than-life character, meeting the woman whose performance had so inspired his own was a landmark moment. They became friends, united by a mutual respect and a shared understanding of what it took to be a great performer. The influence was clear, yet it was never a case of imitation. He took the essence of her theatricality and channeled it through his own unique rock and roll persona, creating something entirely new. While Minnelli offered him a perfect template for stagecraft and theatricality, the raw, rebellious energy of his youth, first discovered through the electrifying sounds of early rock and roll, remained a vital and explosive ingredient in his artistic makeup. This primal energy found its ultimate icon in the man who had shaken the world in the 1950s and whose image was burned into the consciousness of every aspiring musician of Freddie's generation, Elvis Presley.
A team of wild horses couldn't tear us apart. I'm gonna take a tiger from his daddy's side.
Before he was the flamboyant frontman of Queen, before the leotards and the crown, Farrokh Bulsara was a schoolboy in India, playing piano in his first band, the Hectics. Their setlist was a tribute to the pioneers of rock and roll, and at the center of that musical universe was Elvis. Presley was more than a singer, he was a phenomenon. He was the embodiment of cool, a charismatic rebel, with a voice that could be both tender and menacing. For a young Freddie, Elvis was an early blueprint for what a frontman could be. The influence of Elvis stayed with him throughout his life. It was an affection for the very roots of the music that had set him on his path. He absorbed Elvis's vocal swagger, the way he could play with a melody, injecting it with personality and attitude. This was most clearly and joyously expressed decades later on the 1980 album The Game. During a break in recording sessions in Munich, Freddie was in his hotel bathtub when a melody struck him. He later claimed, "I wrote Crazy Little Thing Called Love in the Bath in about 10 minutes." The song was a deliberate and loving homage to Elvis. Freddie sang it in a lower rockabilly register that was a clear nod to Presley's style. When performing it live, he would often strap on an acoustic guitar, something he rarely did, striking poses that echoed the classic images of a young Elvis. It wasn't an attempt to copy the king, it was a heartfelt tribute, a chance for Freddie to connect with the music of his youth and show his respect for one of his foundational heroes. He even used a vintage 1950s recording desk for the track to capture the authentic sound of the era. He once lamented that he had never had the chance to meet his hero. "I would have loved to have met Elvis," he said in an interview. "He was a great, great artist." Freddie saw in Elvis the ultimate solo star, a performer who created a world all of his own. Elvis represented the pinnacle of the individual icon, but Freddie was also a keen and often critical observer of his own contemporaries, particularly those who, like him, were pushing the boundaries of what a rock performance could be on a live stage. This interest in contemporary innovators drew him to a musician who was not primarily known for his vocal prowess, but whose entire stage persona was a conduit for pure, untamed electricity: Jimi Hendrix. When Freddie arrived in London in the mid-60s, the city was the epicenter of a musical and cultural revolution, and no one embodied its explosive creativity more than Hendrix. Freddie saw him perform live, and the experience was transformative. He was completely captivated, not just by Hendrix's revolutionary guitar playing, but by his total command of the stage. Hendrix was a spectacle of sight and sound, a whirlwind of flamboyant clothes, raw sexuality, and unpredictable energy. Freddie spoke about Hendrix with a reverence he reserved for very few artists. He made it clear that this was a hero of the highest order. "Jimi Hendrix is very important. He's my idol," Freddie stated unequivocally in an interview. "He sort of epitomizes, with his presentation on stage, the whole works of a rock star. There's no one who can take his place." For Freddie, the influence was not about vocal style. It was about attitude, about freedom, about the very essence of showmanship. He saw in Hendrix a performer who was utterly uninhibited, someone who could be both graceful and dangerous, beautiful and chaotic, all within the space of a single song. He absorbed this spirit of rock and roll abandon into his own developing stage persona. The way Freddie would prowl the stage, using the microphone stand as a prop, a partner, or a weapon, had echoes of the way Hendrix treated his guitar. The flamboyant, almost dandyish fashion sense that Hendrix pioneered was certainly an inspiration for Freddie's own increasingly outrageous costumes. He wasn't trying to copy Hendrix's specific moves or his voice. He was trying to tap into the same source of wild theatrical energy. It was about learning how to be a star, how to project a personality that could fill a stadium and create a legend. While he drew on the fire and flair of American-born artists like Hendrix, Freddie also had a profound and enduring respect for the artistry and songwriting craft of his British peers, especially the one who had changed the world from just up the road in Liverpool. This appreciation for songwriting genius, for lyrics that could be both poetic and painfully direct, found its focus in the work of the Beatles, and particularly in the raw confessional artistry of John Lennon.
Imagine all the people living for today.
Queen, like almost every British band of their generation, grew up in the shadow of the Beatles. They had rewritten the rulebook for what a pop group could be, and Freddie held their musical achievements in the highest regard. But it was John Lennon, the sharp-witted, iconoclastic heart of the band, that he admired most intensely.
You make me dizzy when you rock and roll.
He saw Lennon not just as a writer of catchy tunes, but as a true artist, someone who used his music to explore his own psyche and to comment on the world around him. Freddie often spoke of Lennon's immense talent, placing him on a pedestal of musical genius. He said, "John Lennon was a genius, an absolute genius. Even in his early Beatles stuff, I always admired him." The admiration went beyond the craftsmanship of the songs. Freddie was drawn to the emotional honesty in Lennon's voice. Lennon's singing style was often raw, abrasive, and deeply personal, particularly in his solo work. It wasn't always technically perfect, but it was always authentic. This resonated deeply with Freddie, who believed that the emotion of a performance was paramount. The vocal styles of Freddie Mercury and John Lennon were, on the surface, worlds apart. Freddie's was a powerful operatic tenor. Lennon's was a characterful rock and roll voice. Freddie never tried to imitate Lennon's sound. The influence was more subtle, more philosophical. It was about artistic integrity. It can be heard in the emotional depth of Freddie's own ballads, in songs where he allowed a sense of vulnerability or melancholy to break through the bombast.
Mama, just killed a man, but God against his.
When Lennon was tragically killed in December 1980, Freddie was deeply affected. At a Queen concert in London just a few days after the murder, he paid a moving tribute, dedicating the song "Life is Real" to Lennon.
Life is real. Life is real.
The only person I wish I had met was John Lennon. Because he's the one that I did idolize, and I just thought he was just a very beautiful human being.
The song itself was a departure, a more stripped-back, piano-led piece whose lyrical style and emotional directness were a clear and conscious homage to the hero he had just lost. This lifelong passion for a diverse range of powerful voices, from soul to rock to cabaret, laid the groundwork for his most audacious and unexpected musical love affair, one that would take him from the rock stadium to the world of the opera house. This journey into a completely different musical world, a final and spectacular frontier for his voice, was sparked by a single performance that left him breathless. In 1983, Freddie was watching television when he saw the Spanish soprano, Montserrat Caballé, performing in Verdi's opera Un ballo in Mascara. He was utterly transfixed. He had always enjoyed opera, but this was different. He was not just impressed, he was profoundly moved. He felt he had discovered the most perfect voice he had ever heard. From that moment, he became an obsessive fan, buying her records and telling everyone who would listen about this incredible singer. He famously declared in a television interview, "I have now heard the best voice in the world." For years, he harbored a dream of meeting her, perhaps even singing with her. The opportunity finally came in 1987. He was asked to contribute a song for the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. He saw his chance. He wrote a song and, through his contacts, arranged to meet Caballé at the Ritz Hotel in Barcelona. He was, for perhaps the first time in his professional life, incredibly nervous.
This last couple of weeks, I have been working with this amazing woman. She's a big operatic star. Her name is Montserrat Caballé. She comes from Barcelona. And she just called up a few weeks ago and said she'd like to sing with me. So, of course, I fell flat on the floor. I thought, my God. But I've loved her, for years. And I think it worked when I went to Barcelona recently. So I did a TV show, and they asked me, and I said, well, she's the best singer in the world. And I'd love to be able to sing with her. So she must have she must have seen it.
He played her a song he had written, and she was intrigued. She recognized a fellow artist, a kindred spirit with a passion for music that transcended genre. To Freddie's astonishment and delight, she not only liked his music, but agreed to make an entire album with him.
I think it's just like a dream come true personally, you see. And I think it means a lot to me because I've finally done something that I really wanted, is to sing with her.
This was the one instance where Freddie moved beyond admiration or inspiration into true collaboration. He wasn't paying homage, he was creating a new work that merged his world with hers. The project, which became the album Barcelona, was a monumental undertaking.
This dream was me and you.
Freddie adapted his entire approach to singing and songwriting. He wrote epic, sweeping melodies that would suit her voice and pushed his own to its limits to complement her. He took on a different vocal persona, more controlled, more refined, showcasing a stunning operatic quality that few knew he possessed. He wasn't copying her, he was harmonizing with her, both literally and figuratively. Their famous first performance of the title track at the Coup Club in Ibiza in May 1987 was a triumph, a surreal and beautiful spectacle. The man who had idolized so many great voices had finally found his ultimate singing partner, creating a unique and powerful duet that became a final, glorious testament to his boundless musical curiosity.